Trigger warning, this is not for everyone. I was sleep deprived from late night schoolwork, so I was a mess yesterday all day. Maybe because of that, I felt everything magnified as I wrote this. Hiccup sobbing. Again, it's not for everyone. The date on this arm would have ended in 03 rather than 01. However, everything changed after 9/11. Instead of getting married at Bear Mountain, New York, 2 years later, we eloped with a wedding party 2 years early. No one knew if tomorrow was still coming. Everything changed after that morning. We were in complete shock together. We clung to one another for months and our broken selves while alone. Through stinging, swollen eyes of disbelief, and we wondered if planes would continue to fall from the sky. A friend of mine and I were getting our usual morning coffee. I remember. When we got back to our floor, everything was different. Something had changed forever, but no one could understand the reality of it. We couldn't grasp the gravity of what had happened was continuing to happen. I can see us there so vividly, so completely lost, staring at one another for answers we knew nobody had. We could not even formulate the questions. We had never heard of or seen anything like this, not on our soil. And then the second plane hit. Which confirmed it was no longer an accident. Next, the third plane heroically downed itself in such an inconceivable and sacrificial way, we later learned. The reality of it was unbearable, and my mother was lost somewhere on a plane and ended up in Canada. St. John's, safe, cared for. We asked for days, weeks, months, years later, is this the end of the impenetrable U.S., our world as we knew it? Yet, almost simultaneously, despite the depths of everyone's fear, humans, one after the other, came together in droves, sheltering strangers, mirror reflections of ourselves, across all the lines, assisting each other in whatever way we felt we were capable. Trying to memorize faces of thousands of posters. Of the missing. Hoping against hope that many of them would turn up in one hospital or another. For devastated families from all over the world, too many of them did not. Unreal images on the television. A million different angles, over and over again, every minute, every hour. Recordings of final cell phone calls to loved ones from the towers. The planes, desperate to communicate how much love they were taking with them. Knowing they were in their final moments. How would you even choose your very last words? Voices cut off mid-sentence, the end. Blank. Void. So many unsung heroes and untold stories on land, on water. So many open arms to somehow uselessly embrace the lost, the decimated, the disintegrated, the vaporized, into nothingness, leaving pits, eternal pits of emptiness for all the stolen mothers, fathers, brothers, sisters, children. I miss the brotherhood and sisterhood that was born out of that day. After all that was endured thereafter, there was a resiliency to be there for one another, an unapologetic humanness to treat every suffering stranger with love, compassion, a duty to protect whatever fragments remained of who we were. Now, whatever that meant, we were in this together. And today I often ask myself, where did that unity go? We keep seeming to find new and improved ways to love each other less and less. To tear each other down, to name call, to blame, to point crooked fingers at, to accuse, to dehumanize into one category or another, the kind we like and the kind we hate, to simplify us as a species when we are so very complex. And to tell the truth, as devastating as that day was and always will be, I'm also reminded it's a daily reality for all too many people on this earth before, during, and after 9/11 to lose that much all at once, or over a lifetime. And that hurts too. Presently, we know we have brothers and sisters suffering within this country and outside this country. People risking everything to get away from the daily hell they miraculously continue to survive. A hell they don't understand, they don't deserve. And unless they risk life and limb, even then there are no promises. They will never escape alive, unbroken, or be whole again. And we know if they do make it out, there's more often than not nowhere for them to go. So they will continue to suffer and die day after day exactly where they are, not far from other people who are thriving and living their best lives. Maybe hell is living with the people who are supposed to love and care for and nurture them and instead do the opposite without apology or because they can't get past their own lifelong traumas. And this is a cyclical and generational event. Perhaps they're hungry, thirsty, scrambling unforgiving mountains, and trusting their lives to raging seas with useless boats, if you can call them that, with their children, their babies, both their everything and nothing left. Their lives at the hands of merciless mercenaries looking to capitalize on their most of perilous situations because their expendable loss is their gain. Or they make it out of their living hell and have to turn back because the system isn't equipped to protect them. Neither are churches, mosques, synagogues, and other places of worship or organizations that come together. And everyone is too busy arguing over fairness over humanity. Or ask if the bootstraps have been pulled high enough. Or whose battle is it to fight anyway, because I personally have my own stuff to handle. And whether on our own soil or another, too many of our brothers and sisters have, do and will die yet another anonymous death, and that cuts deep into our fabric too. Looking back, I also remember the attack, the isolation, the separation from everyone else of any immigrant or American who looked like a terrorist. It was not a good time to be from the Middle East or to look like someone who was even remotely from that region of the world. And in our ignorance, didn't they all look the same? Weren't they all tied to someone somewhere, tied to these acts of terror because only they would be capable of something like that? I mean, can you even imagine what they even eat, what filth they grew up in? There was no love for you if you had a suspicious name, the wrong outfit, the wrong religion, because all your associations were, of course, wrong and against everyone else's pursuit of life, liberty, and happiness. Keep your stuff away from my stuff, not to mention your eyes, ears, and hands. Hatred and fear grew just as equally for the easily scapegoated as the love for the lost had. So that day will always be a tragedy, but everything else I mentioned is also true to me. We've always been and remain as ugly as we are beautiful. We have always been and remain as protective as we are antagonistic. It's just a question of the day, the time, the place, the threat, the condition of the heart towards anyone in any situation. We're all capable of the best and the worst reception and treatment of one another. Not one of us is above or beneath this. So years later, that's how I see this day. It's a reminder, a warning to me, that hope can always be wrangled with fearfulness, that we can choose the most noble of actions and despicable of actions all in the same breath. Whatever ours or our neighbor's circumstances, we can be the helped, the helper, or the one who hurts at any given moment. No one's above this mess of being an occasionally magnificent and yet obliterating and flawed human. There's no competition to be better or worse than anybody else because we are all capable of both. Sometimes we have the choice to make the best choices and sometimes we don't, and it can all boil down to that. What is indisputable is that on 9/11, too many people died and too many left behind die day after day still, and this will never end for them. While tortured people are still hurting, wishing they could change one thing or everything about that day, if they could. Too many emergency personnel saved a lot of people from dying that day, and too many, despite heroic efforts, remain forever gone and will never again come home. I just want to learn from the love. I want to learn from the hate. I want to choose the first at all costs whenever possible, because there's too much of the latter. And we need to usurp its reign as best as we can.